The United Nations has called on the military junta in the country to restore constitutional order immediately. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said there was no legal basis to prosecute the post-President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason and expressed grave concerns for the people of Niger.
Rights Chief Volker Turk expresses grave concern for the people of Niger, who have been forced to endure even more misery following last month's military coup. He calls on the generals to immediately restore constitutional order. Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world, extremely vulnerable to climate change. The people have already been through so much hardship over the years. Now the very people who they elected to build a pathway to end their destitution have been removed by force against the constitutional order and detained by the coup leaders. They must be released at once and democracy restored.
For more on this, let's bring in the Rise Special Correspondent Karl Bostic, who's been monitoring developments from London. Karl, thank you for joining us on Newsnight. Now, the issue in Niger has been generating more concerns by the day, more international community concerns, to say. Speak to us about the latest moves and declaration and assertions from the United Nations.
Well, just first of all, just going back to the comments being made coming out of Ghana, what's interesting is that, conventionally they say that if you want to reverse a coup, those golden hours are the first 24, 48 hours after the coup happened. We're now 3 weeks into the coup. However, as you just heard the spokesperson speak, Abdel Fattah Musa, speaking from Accra, he says, this is one coup too many. This is a line in the sand. In fact, you could say that this is really a red line coup for Ecowas, a red line coup for the region, and a red line coup for Nigeria and its President Tinubu, since Nigeria is the most powerful member of Ecowas. What they're saying is that it's really, they want to keep the idea of the use of force as an option on the table. It doesn't mean it's the next move, but it means that it's an option they're ready to exercise because they still want to pursue diplomatic, peaceful means. There's still even talk of a possible ECOWAS mission traveling to Niamey tomorrow on Saturday to try to resolve this peacefully. But what this means in practical terms is this. You look at the history and track record of ECOWAS. I think, first of all, keep in mind that in the past 3 years alone, you've had 5 coups in ECOWAS. Guinea, 2 in Burkina Faso, 2 in Mali. If this coup becomes successful, this would be the 6th coup for ECOWAS. That's why it's one coup too many. But also, disturbingly enough, the past 4 coups, there was no response or answer from ECOWAS. But additionally, for the region itself, Niger is too important strategically for the region and internationally, since it hosts foreign bases by the U.S. and French to fight counterterrorism, not just in Niger, but the entire region of the Sahel. So that's why this is a real litmus test for the credibility of ECOWAS for the region and also Nigeria. Because you need to also keep in mind this. Compared to past missions, for example, you've had ECOWAS missions in Liberia, Sierra Leone, most recently Gambia back in 2017. This is totally, totally different. Gambia, for example, Africa's smallest country. When an intervention force went in there, it was like only 7,000 troops. Gambia alone is like 100th the size of Niger. Niger is 100 times the size of Gambia, nearly twice the size of the U.S. state of Texas, or twice the size of France. So conventionally, it's very difficult to imagine a force to be assembled to take control of a territory that size. However, if you look at it this way, and that's why this is so interesting, if you set up a very, very narrowly focused, targeted force to intervene, it's practical and possible. And that's what's so interesting about it, because you won't need a force to take over the entire territory. You need to simply, strike to the heart of the problem of the coup, and that's in the capital, Niamey. And that's why really all eyes are on Nigeria in terms of what can happen. Because not only is it one coup too many, it's also because if this coup persists, if you look at the history of Mali and Burkina Faso with its coups, each coup has actually increased and worsened the violence.
Thank you, Karl. Now, we're talking now about the D-Day for armed intervention by Ecowas. But then nobody seems to be talking about the living conditions of the people of Niger. Speak to us about the impact so far of this back and forth on the people.
That's a very important question to note, because already Niger is consistently, if not the poorest country in the world. It's the bottom three, so to speak. I mean, what's really alarming is this: a country of 25 million people. You've got 4 million people relying on humanitarian assistance on a daily basis. Reportedly, about 40% of that population live in poverty already. That's before the coup. But because of these sanctions, because of border closures, because of closed airspace, no aid has been able to get into the country. So now it's estimated that those in need of humanitarian aid, it could go up to as much as 7 million people right there. You've got hundreds of trucks from aid agencies and the UN lined up on the border of Benin with Niger, not to mention Nigeria, of course, 1,000-mile long border with 7 states, hundreds of trucks lined up wanting to go into Niger and unable to because of the border closure. And then also disturbingly, Nigeria, supplies about 70 or as much as even 90% of Niger's electricity power needs. That's been cut off. So you now have blackouts of up to 10 hours of only working electricity of up to maybe just an hour and a half a day. So you've got, food stores unable to store their food in refrigerators because there's no electricity or power. Food is rotting. So this is actually a humanitarian crisis that existed before the coup that's now about to be made worse. And that's why they still want to find a peaceful outcome to this, or actually, at least, if ECOWAS is going to continue with the sanctions, find a way perhaps to make it less punishing for those in Niamey, the capital, and in the rural countryside.
Okay, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdul Fattah Musa, says they are ready to move in anytime the order is given right now. What about the panic this could bring to the average citizen of Niger as we speak?
That's a very, very good question. Just to give you an idea of how really Niger right now is a country under siege, because you already have foreigners being evacuated from Niger, it's battening down the hatches. You've got countries like France and US. They've paused or suspended their security operations that were vital for countering terrorism. That's why you have a surge in fighting. The other day on Tuesday, you had 17 Nigerian soldiers killed in an ambush attack, because there are no more counterterrorism operations. But then most tellingly, it's now been announced that a civic movement is now underway to mobilize civilian volunteers countrywide across Niger beginning tomorrow on Saturday to assist the junta if they are called upon. You're going to see a mobilizing recruitment effort for Nigerians 18 years and older to volunteer to fight, to volunteer to help out logistically for any medical needs. A lot of that recruitment actually will be taking place along the border of Niger with Benin and Nigeria, from where if there is an intervention or invasion, it would most likely come from those two areas. So they are actually preparing for the fact that if it's not imminent, that they should not take it for granted that the junta will be allowed to exist, without it being challenged.
Karl Bostic, let's wrap up where we started from. Thank you very much indeed. We just hope that whatever D-Day this could be, we just only hope that whatever action ECOWAS will take eventually does not fester, does not make the situation fester within the international community and with the United Nations and other global community. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Newsnight.
If I may make one more quick point, may I do so?
Oh, carry on then.
Yeah, I think the key is this: for a peaceful outcome, there needs to be a goodwill gesture. Right now, President Tinubu told the EU chief in a phone call today, Charles Michel, that if anything happens to the deposed President Bazoum, there will be grave consequences.
Right.
I think it's important to show that he is alive and safe, and maybe even release his family, his wife and son, as a goodwill gesture, to then talk about a transition out of this terrible, horrific crisis.
Diplomacy, that's the key word, diplomacy. Thank you very much, Karl.